I want to start this podcast with a big idea that our kids are not responsible for our feelings. I know. Isn't that a game changer? I mean, if our kids really knew that, if they knew that they weren't responsible for how we feel, wouldn't that be such a freeing and eye-opening realization to the kids? I know it would have been to me as a kid. And in this podcast today, we're going to talk about why that's so important that your kids know this and that we as parents know it and that we do our best not to put that responsibility on them. And we're also going to give you 5 clear, easy steps to start using today to change those dynamics if that's going on in your home. And I guarantee it's going on in every home who's listening to this, because it's going on in our home too. And we definitely want to follow these 5 steps as well, intentionally being aware of these steps to help make sure our kids are able to take responsibility for their own feelings and not ours. And I'm going to share some just personal insight about how this affected my life growing up, because this realization was probably one of the bigger realizations I had going into adulthood that really freed me to be the dad I am today. So I hope you have a pen and paper ready, or you're ready to really listen and dial in and get some great insight into how to change this dance in your home. And if you haven't done it already, I would love for you to comment, to share, to like, give us a 5-star review. Those are fantastic. Love to hear back from you about how maybe you grew up in a home where you felt responsible for your mom and dad's feelings, because I know many of us did. And so I hope today that you're able to listen to the podcast and get a lot from it to really impact and change for the good how you're parenting your kids today.
Welcome to the Art of Raising Humans.
The Art of Raising Humans is a podcast designed to support, equip, and encourage parents on how to create long-lasting, deeply connected relationships with their kids that's free from fear and shame. Come join us on the journey. Hello and welcome to The Art of Raising Humans. I'm Kyle.
Hi, I am Sara.
And Sara, a common issue that comes up a lot in us helping parents with like parent-kid dynamics, is a lot of times this thing that we tend to do. I know I have done it, and I'm sure at times you have as well, where our feelings become kind of hard to differentiate from our kids' feelings, or even
or their actions.
Yeah, or their like I know I've even had that thought where we've had a really good weekend plan, something fun, and then one of our kids, especially when they were younger, would get really upset about something, and I would think in my head, "You're ruining my whole weekend. I wanted to have a lot of fun and feel happy, and now you're making me mad."
Yeah. I think every parent has had that moment where your discomfort, like your child's going through a moment, and then your discomfort, you kind of feel like it's their fault that you're having this discomfort.
Well, I wanted to have this talk with you because it is a daily struggle for a lot of parents, one, to be aware that they're doing it, but 2, also to talk about the effects of what that does long term, right? Like none of us want to raise kids who are getting into codependent relationships when they're married or codependent friendships. But a lot of that happens because of the codependent ways we kind of tie our emotions with our kids, right? Yeah. And so, kind of the thing that inspired us to write this was this kind of thought that our kid isn't responsible for our feelings. And why does that matter? Because it has these long-reaching effects throughout their life and our relationship with them if we aren't able to see it, understand it, and know what to do about it.
Yeah. I think it's really, really important. And I mean, I don't know. I didn't hear a lot about this in the early parenting, learning about trying to learn to be a parent. But no matter what our child does, no matter how our child is behaving or feeling, whatever's going on with them, its impact on us is on us. Yeah. It's our own thing. It's our own way of looking at what's going on. It's our own interpretation. It's our own paradigm. It's our own sunglasses that we're putting on, because you can see multiple parents with children doing similar things. You and I have been in positions where we see a lot of family dynamics across multiple families. And one set of parents will respond completely different than another. And it all depends on that voice in your head, the triggers that are in your head from your childhood. All those things are playing into that moment, but we put that burden on our children.
Yeah.
instead of realizing that's about me.
Well, I'm even thinking, I bet a lot of listeners right now, Sarah, if they took a moment and thought about ways they felt responsible for their mom and dad's happiness, or they felt responsible for making sure they didn't get mad or upset, right? I think all of us have had those moments where we've kind of been tiptoeing around something, or I'm thinking of so many stories I hear from kids who I'll be like, why didn't you tell your mom or dad that? Like, they're kind of upset. I didn't tell them because I know if I did this, they were going to cry, or they were going to be upset, or they were going to say, when you tell me that, that makes me so sad. And the kid would be like, well, I didn't mean to do that. I wasn't trying to cause you that, right? So some of it is tied up in some of that language. I think it's kind of easy to see when parents are saying, you made me feel this when you did that, right? So that's a real easy way to see how that parent is telling that kid that they are responsible for how they feel. But I think sometimes they even do it in ways that sound healthy. Like when we say something like, you hurt my feelings when you called me that name. And we think,
oh, I'm being authentic. I'm being honest. And we say that,
And I think you could say that in a way that is authentic and honest. But you could also say it in a way where you kind of hook the kid in to say, see what you did to me? Like, you made me feel this way. And I'm just saying you hurt my feelings. But really, the kid never intended to do that. In many of those cases, the kid is hurting themselves and they say something. And really, it's our own emotional interpretation and judgment of what the kid did that hurt our feelings. It isn't even lots of times the action.
And it's actually really, to me, really freeing to embrace that, to realize regardless, even you, whatever you do, whatever our children do, my reaction and my feelings about that is really me. It's my own. Even if you're intending to hurt me, it's still me. I could look at my child and go, they're intending to hurt me because they're a bad kid, or because they hate me, or because they're struggling. So that's still my interpret. I get to do that. And I can do that for my own benefit. I can do that in a way that's going to be healthy for me, or I can do it in a way that's going to hurt our relationship even more, make myself feel even worse. And so that gave me a lot of freedom to kind of go, wait a second. I have some control in this moment of me and how I'm looking at this. And it's really not up to them.
Well, you can even go back as you're talking. I'm thinking of all the stages our kids have gone through. Like, it's kind of easy when they were little babies and they had those sharp fingernails and they'd reach up and they kind of like scratch your face, And as a baby, you'd be like, oh, I don't think the baby meant to do that. So you wouldn't be like, oh, that hurt. But you say something like, that hurt. Use your gentle hands, okay? Touch me like this, You do that. But then I remember as the kids got to be toddlers, and I remember one time Brennan, we were at my mom's house and Brennan got upset about something. He hit you. He kind of like hit you in the, like, I can't remember where he hit you, but he hit you somewhere. And as soon as I saw it, I felt this emotion pop up in me of like, oh my gosh, what's my mom going to think that happened? Or what's Sarah going to do? Or I wanted to be like, you don't do that to mom. But I remember you didn't take it on as a personal attack on you, even though it clearly looked like one. And you were just like, oh, Brennan, you seem scared or you seem upset. And then Brendan was like, well, I am. And he started to tell you. And then you, at the end, just said, hey, when you feel you don't need to hit me, just tell me. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Because it would have been really easy for you to go, when you hit me, it really hurts my feelings. And you could have easily made it into this guilting, kind of shaming thing to try to make Brendan feel bad about what he did. And that's where we put in our notes to really clarify this. It's not saying you're given a free pass. To what the kid did. It's not it's like you don't need to address the fact that Brendan hit you. It's just this idea that I quickly need to go and let Brendan know he hurt my feelings, that Brendan hurt me. And I've got to be aware, is my intent to just shame the kid? Is it to somehow guilt them into not doing it? Or am I really curious about what caused that? Like, how were they hurting? And that's why they lashed out.
Yeah. And you're just going to respond in a way different space. If it's about me now and my feelings and things, I'm going to respond from a different space than just curiosity and what's going on with him and how can I help him in this moment, because clearly something is there for him.
So when we say your child isn't responsible for your feelings, what we're trying to convey, it means we don't put the weight of our emotional state on them. It's not their job to take care of my emotions, right? And I'm telling you, some listeners might be saying, well, yeah, duh, that makes sense. But that's hard to do, because it's not as if what they do does not have an impact on us. We're not talking about being robots and like we can just it's always still going to impact us, but it's not their responsibility to fix it or to change it.
Yeah. If my teenager talks to me in a way that I don't like, it still helps me to think, well, the fact that I don't like this and what I need to do about myself and taking care of myself in that moment has really kind of nothing to do with her, even though I prefer to talk in a different, we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
But still me taking care of me in that moment based on what happened is my job. It's not, oh, you need to talk to me different so I don't have to ever feel that way.
And so we're talking about in that moment. Later on, you might have a discussion. Later on, you might follow up to say, "Here's it."
Absolutely
but we're talking
like
in that moment. We want to make sure we're differentiating. Like, this is not about me. The thing that teenagers, it's not about me. It's about them communicating something. And if I cannot take it personal, if I can pull back a little bit and then see it for what it is, it's just a way in which they're communicating and I don't like it.
Yeah, so we'll change that.
Yeah, well, we can focus on that later, but now what is it they're trying to say? Really, what is it they're trying to communicate? It's not their job to make me happy or to make me not feel sad in this moment. It's their job to express what they're feeling, and then I can help guide them on how to do it differently in the future. But let's shift to why this happens. Like, why do we get into this thing with parents, where we do feel responsible for it? And I think many of us were raised in homes where we did think it was kind of our job to keep our moms happy or to not upset our dads. I know that's kind of a stereotype, but in most homes I knew that's what it was. It was to keep your mom happy and then not upset dad.
I think it's a pattern that has been generational, and it's not even to, again, we say this all the time, but it's not to be like, oh, my parents are terrible or your parents are terrible. The generation before us were just awful people. That's not the point. It's not to shame them or anything. It's to say, hey, we're noticing something and we do it too. And where that seems to keep going. And it's, the wait till your father gets home. Right. So it's basically, hey, you'd better act a certain way and be a certain thing and do a certain thing so that he's not going to be
or serious.
He's not going to.
What it looked like in my home, it was like on a Saturday morning, dad waking us up. And like, your mom is so upset at how dirty this house is. You guys need to clean this or your mom's going to be very upset when she gets home. Right. And so it was like, oh my God, like we've got to clean it. It wasn't like clean it because cleaning's good. It was like clean it so mom doesn't feel overwhelmed and stressed.
Yeah. The children are now, the big issue with this is the children become the caretakers for the parents' feelings.
Yeah.
And they become, in a way, the puppet masters for the parents' feelings. It's like our parents are just at the, whatever your kids do dictates how you're going to be that day and how you're going to feel that day. And obviously that's just not a very healthy place to be. You can instruct your children in lots of ways without them being responsible for your feelings and your reactions. You're not at their mercy.
And I know you put down in the notes too about this kind of brings up the myth of kind of the good children, and the good children, quote unquote, good kids are the ones that are really good at helping manage the adult's emotions. They're the ones that can read that the parent looks, so they're going to act good. They're going to follow the rules. They're not going to upset the apple cart because mom or dad seem to be on edge today.
Yeah, you see your parent come in from work and right, kids are better at this than adults are. Kids are so good at going, ooh, I can feel it. Mom or dad had a bad day at work. Or mom and dad are fighting. Or whatever the situation might be, they can pick up on that. And not every kid, but kids will feel like, okay, I got to tiptoe around. Okay, I'm gonna do this because they're caretaking for the parent.
Well, and lots of times even siblings. I remember as siblings talking about that. Mom and dad are not in a good mood. Like,
warning.
And you tell your other sibling, like, shut up, stop acting like that. Like you're upsetting them. And it was all this, like, we had such power, it seemed like, to really blow everything up, but somehow we didn't have the power to fix everything. And that kind of brought me into I was thinking, Sarah, as I looked over this idea of what we're going to teach you that share today is, growing up as a kid, there were these moments where my parents would have a lot of fighting, a lot of arguing in the house, and things were very conflictual. And there was a time between second to third grade in my life where there was a lot of fighting. Up until then, I'd been this really active kid who was, a normal shaped kid, thin, active boy. But that summer I ballooned. I got so overweight. And I remember thinking of from that second to third grade summer when I heard all that fighting, one of the things that my mom was so good at was cooking home cooked meals. So she would not only work a full-time job, but she'd come home and cook too. And I remember lots of times my siblings would complain, this is what I didn't want this, mom, or I'm kind of tired, or they would hardly eat anything. And I would purposely want to eat not only one and tell my mom how great it was. She's a good cook. So it'd be like lasagna or something, but I'd have 2, maybe even 3 helpings. Because I saw how much my mom seemed to, it lightened her load. Like she felt good that she was able to do something, even though life was chaotic, even though the family was stressful, she could make a good meal for their kids. And then, oh, look at this one kid really seems to love it and eat it. And that kind of is what lots of people talk when they talk about emotional eating, is I was trying to do my best by getting good grades, by eating the food my mom made, by not causing problems at home. I tried to keep the peace as much as I could as like a good middle kid.
Yeah. I'm going to take care of things at home. And it's just instinct for kids. They can feel what's going on in the environment, and they're going to do things to try to take care of that. And so I don't think any parent can do this perfect. We're going to have days and our kids are going to pick up on that, and they're going to be very sensitive to our emotions. We just need to be really, really aware that what we're feeling, what we're going through, children kind of automatically put it on themselves. And they often even blame themselves. If I were a better kid, this would be, and mom and dad wouldn't be fighting. Or if I were this, or they often take that responsibility on, even when we don't mean to. We don't want them to take it on, and they just happen to. So we want to have that radar up. We want to be very aware of it, and kind of doing that reminder that this is not your job, and reminding ourselves, where am I doing that? Make sure the message I'm sending, it's not your fault that this is upsetting me.
Well, and for anyone listening to this saying like, oh, you experienced this, or maybe this is happening in your home, I just want you to hear that actually, when I went to counseling in my 20s for the first time ever, it was because my parents were getting a divorce. And as I spoke to this counselor, the most freeing thing that counselor told me that even inspires me today to help people is he listened to me for 2 whole sessions, just talk about all of these ways in which I feel responsible for my parents' divorce and what's going on, and ways in which I could have done it better. And he said this very simple thing that now seems like, well, of course, but he said, you're not responsible for all that. You're not responsible for your parents' happiness. You're not responsible. Why don't you just focus on what you're responsible and take responsibility for that? And that was actually life-changing for me at that time, because I was taking on all the stress and all the weight of what my parents were going through, even in my 20s. So I look back at how not knowing this thing we're teaching kind of formed me from 2nd grade all the way to mid-20s, to where then I was finally able to go, I'm not responsible for all this. I didn't cause any of this, but I looked at almost all my decisions throughout childhood, even a lot of the good ones, were to help with this problem, to make it lighter for my parents so they didn't feel so overwhelmed. And part of that helped me become a very thoughtful, kind kid. But the negative aspect was I carried on a lot of weight for many, many years, physically and emotionally, that was not mine to carry.
And I think there's a difference. You can say, okay, yes, everything we do impacts those around us. And we want to teach our kids that we do have an impact on those around us. That is different than them being responsible. And I think as a parent, it serves us and them to not have them take that responsibility, and to remind ourselves and them that they are not responsible. I can take care of me.
Yeah. And this word here, this idea of emotional fusion, we discussed, it's when a child's behavior is tied too closely to a parent's sense of peace or self-worth. And we really don't want our kids believing their behavior is tied to that. And they really, when they know that, it actually frees them to focus on how to cultivate their own sense of peace and self-worth. And that's why we're talking this idea of letting them be responsible for themselves is the goal, instead of them being responsible for me.
Yeah. And we probably all, if you take a moment and think, where did I feel responsible as a kid for my parents' well-being in any way? And then I know I think about that. I think, not even if my parents said it, I felt it. in spoken and unspoken ways. And then how I do that now as an adult, even though I don't mean to, to my own kids. I'm like, oh, I think that's sending that message.
Sure. Well,
and I need to change that.
Sarah, I think we send it inadvertently, sometimes without any thinking every day in some way, right? I mean, even like here's some basic statements we came up with, some kind of guilt-laced ones that happen in everyday real life that I'm sure every listener can relate to. And once again, I probably do this a few times a day, right? Where I worked all day and you can't even help me. If I haven't said it, I've definitely thought it. I've come home and I've thought, why is this not done? I've done all this work today. You can't even get off the couch to go do that thing, or I'm so disappointed in you. This has ruined my day, and I hear a lot of teenagers, a lot of kids tell me these kind of stories where they're just confused how they were able to do this. They'd like, I was just playing, or I just forgot.
They know it's about that. And I was just doing this thing. And then the parent takes it very personal. It can feel very personal as a parent.
When you say they do, especially when they're young, they do. But then as they get into teenagers, if they heard it enough, they don't. And then sometimes in counseling teenagers, you're trying to unwire that and say, no, you're not responsible for that. Like, I know mom and dad said that, but that's actually not your job to fix that. It's their job, And so you can impact it for sure. I'll tell them you have an impact, but you don't control that. You could do everything quote unquote right, and they could still feel really crappy. Then the other one is where we kind of like over personalize their behavior. That might be another way. So we may do it through these guilt-laced statements, but when we over personalize it, saying you're being disrespectful when really they're just dysregulated. Right. So like a lot of times when parents are using that term, like you're being so disrespectful, it turns around about me, how you're treating me, instead of us going like, that kid is just really dysregulated. That kid in this moment's overwhelmed. That kid in this moment feels really upset and stressed. And I know even in our marriage, when I feel that way, sometimes I don't say things in the most respectful way, but it's like, once we regulate, we go back, we apologize, we make amends, and then we learn how to, try to make that happen less and less. Okay. And then the third one was reactions that stem from ego or fear. So wanting obedience to feel in control or to be seen as a good parent. So a lot of kids will feel, I know I've had some kids who are super resistant for many years of like, say thank you. Why are you acting like that? Look at them in the eye, and the kid has just had this and really it's this parent saying, you're making me look bad, kid.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, we have definitely felt that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, especially you feel eyes on you, or you feel all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, how are you going to handle this? Look what your kid just said to you, or look what your kid's doing. And that it feels like very much like an attack. And sometimes even people are judging you.
Come on, every listener's had that. Like, that sucks. Your kid all of a sudden out of the blue throws this big tantrum, makes a huge deal out of nothing. And you're like, what is happening? And oh, shoot, we do this for a living. We should be really good at this. And so I tell parents all the time that I'm coaching, man, just this last weekend, we were at the pool and this happened. And I was like so embarrassed or so nervous. And then I did try to make it my kid's problem. Instead of me just regulating, realizing they're just being a kid and we can talk about how to do this better next time, but that's not what this moment is about. This moment is about just helping them be able to transition and get back home, and we can discuss how to do this differently. Okay. So let's get into those answers. We want to give you guys hands-on solutions, 5 steps on how to own your own feelings as a parent and not make it their responsibility. Okay. So first step is you want to first name it to own it. What is that about, Sarah?
Yeah. That's kind of just that. It's a huge thing for our brain. It's a huge thing for any change you're going to do in life, is just to kind of be aware of it. So you just want to name it. You just want to take that second to pause, even if it's after the fact. Sometimes we're down the road before we realize it, and just go, okay, this is what I'm feeling. This is what's happening for me in this moment. I need to name it. And the second you do that, even your brain starts going, oh, okay. Yeah. And it changes things and how you're handling, how you're going to look at it.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you do it, it starts to turn, what's my responsibility about this? Like, you didn't cause this. And then almost 100% of the time, once I name it, once I own it, I see there's a story behind it. Like, oh, that's kind of what my parents would say to me. Or when they said that, I interpreted it this way. Right. And so a statement there might be, you've taken some time, you've regulated, you come back and say, I feel overwhelmed and I need a minute. So in that moment, you're needing to step back. You just say that instead of like, you're making me feel this, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need a minute. Okay. So that'd be a good way then to step away and then be able then to go on to step 2, which is pause before you react.
Yeah. There's a lot of power in that pause. And again, oh man, this is such good modeling for kids because man, if our kids in the heat of a moment, which they're not going to be, we're not good at it. They're definitely not going to be good at it. If they could just realize what they're feeling, pause before they react to their friend, their sibling, their us, anything. So it's the same thing. Just if you can train your brain, you get better with practice, know what you're feeling, take a pause so you can be intentional and not reactive.
And once again, this works great in marriage too. So all this works great in marriage. So basically take a moment to check and think, is this about them or about me? Right? And almost 100% of the time, it's about you. It's about you and what you're perceiving in that moment, right?
That's what you want to be aware of. I mean, it's important to know what the other person's going through, but I mean, your starting place is, whoa, what's this pulling up in me? Why am I so mad? Or why am I so,
So the third one is use I language, such as I'm feeling disappointed versus you've disappointed me. Okay. So I think that's real simple. I think a lot of people have heard that type of understanding that you pointing the finger and blaming them, that's not you taking responsibility. So I want to say, I'm feeling disappointed, because then the next one, I wonder why I'm feeling disappointed. What is it that's disappointing me? What am I perceiving this moment that's causing that feeling to pop up, instead of once again blaming them and saying, you did this to me.
And you just want to be super cautious. Sometimes our wording can come across still, even in those I statements, can still kind of come off as a blame.
Yeah, it's like
I feel disappointed because you didn't do whatever. And it's really not that. You want to keep it very centered on you, because it really is. If my child doesn't bring in the trash bins,
what? I've never gotten upset about that.
I know. What are you talking
Somebody
about? Could take it.
You seem to be calling me out.
Someone might take it personal, as if they're not loved or cared for because the trash bins were forgotten. Another parent might go, "Oh yeah, they have to hear it 5,000 times in context. They haven't heard it that many times, so that's why they haven't gotten the trash bins in yet." So it really, really is. Just remember, it could be interpreted a lot of different ways. Your interpretation is your own.
Yes. No, I definitely did take that personal. But anyway, number 4, separate behavior from identity. So an example of that would be, I didn't like the way that went, instead of saying, you made me feel bad.
Yeah.
Separate behavior from identity.
I love this one, because usually you both agree that that wasn't lovely and you don't want to repeat it. Yeah. So there's a lot of power in that. We use that. The kids use that. It's just such a great thing to be able to go, ooh, that didn't feel very good.
I didn't like the way that went.
I didn't like that. Yeah. What can we try different next time?
It's a question that parents love it. Lots of times they'll be like, how do you do the follow-up with them? And I'll be like, I would sit with the kid and say, did you like how that went?
Yeah.
And almost every time the kid says no. I'll be like, I didn't either. And then I say, what didn't you like about it? And then they'll tell you, I didn't like how you were screaming at me and blaming me for everything. Yeah.
But what I love about that is it does take the power out of this battle between you guys. Suddenly you're on the same side going, look at that thing that just happened. You didn't like it. You're on the same team now, making it different next time, instead of still pointing the finger at each other. So I really love how that changes the energy and the dynamic of that conversation.
Completely. And then step number 5, do your own emotional work. And so that goes to doing therapy, journaling, really healing that inner kid in you, talking with a partner. Doing this work is so important, because then the child doesn't carry what you haven't dealt with. Guys, such a good picture of thinking of it like baggage, right? We've heard of that kind of idea, that metaphor. You don't want to give your kids your baggage. If you're doing the work yourself, you're doing your own emotional work, your own emotional healing, you just have less baggage to give them, so you'll notice you're less likely to do those other things we just said not to do.
Yeah. And we're all going to have stuff. Our parents had stuff. Their parents had stuff. So we're all going to have stuff. Let's just do our best to see it and pass on as little as possible.
And the biggest thing that you're doing when you do those 5 steps is, when you own your own feelings, you actually teach your child how to own theirs too. That's the ultimate goal, is you want to raise kids who aren't going around treating people badly. You want to raise kids who take responsibility when they treat people in ways that they don't want to be treated, and they can own that and then do something about it. So I want to just review those 5. So 5 were, number 1, name it to own it. Number 2, pause before you react. 3, use I language instead of you language. Separate the behavior from the identity, and then do your own emotional work. Okay. So this matters so much, Sarah, because we really want to have homes where there is this emotional safety and trust, that everybody is able to take ownership of what is theirs instead of us blaming the other and putting each other in charge of that. So this whole process really models emotional maturity. It models resiliency. It frees our kids to be honest, imperfect, allows them to just grow at their own pace rather than having to like take responsibility for our growth. And it also prevents future people pleasing, which is huge. It prevents those shame cycles that so many parents and adults come to counseling for. And it also prevents emotional avoidance. You know, a lot of parents, you're probably seeing this with teenagers who shut down and don't want to talk about their emotions. They don't because they don't want it to impact you.
Yeah. They're like, I learned a long time ago that if I do this, I don't know what's going to happen with you. And so they can't. So they're stored inside.
And I love this powerful question. So I want to kind of end with this powerful question. What might change if your child didn't have to protect you from your own emotions? And trust me, audience, I'm asking myself that same question. I mean, so many things would change if my kids didn't feel the need to protect me from my own emotions, right? And so if you get anything from this, I hope you take time to just ponder and reflect on that question and see how that might shift what you're doing on a daily basis with your kids. And of course, we want to remind you that you are responsible for your emotional world. Your child is not. And that's not a burden, but it's a gift to both of you. It's a gift because you someday don't want to be responsible for theirs. You want them to grow up where everyone's able to take their own. And I would love for you, if you know families going through this, definitely take time to invite them to listen to this episode, share with them. I think this would be a great one to share if you've got grandparents involved who are open to growing. Maybe they have a lot of time with your aunts and uncles who spend a lot of time with your kids, right? And there's been discussion about this, right? It'd be good to listen to this podcast and understand how you guys as a family can all learn how to own this instead of blaming the kids for our emotions.
Yeah. It's so powerful.
Yes.
It's work we're doing every day.
Exactly. So we hope this was very helpful to you. Hope it empowers you to change this dance in your family and brings more freedom to your relationship with your kids. So thank you so much for listening, and we hope you have a wonderful day. The Art of Raising Humans podcast should not be considered or used as counseling, but for educational purposes only.